that one.
He needs, oh, he has one. Sonny. Sonny doesn't.
Yvonne,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to give you this one too.
Okay.
This is the ITA board. Human resources. Rules on that. It's number 10 on the agenda.
That's the estate tax.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the work session of the Cuyahoga County Council. I'd like to welcome you all. What we'll be doing is going through the agenda to talk about various items in preparation for our official meeting at 6 o'clock. Do we need to call a roll for the work session? Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana.
Here.
Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron. Here. Well. Here. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Conley. Here. Mr. Rogers. Here. Ms. Simon. Here. Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Present. Mr. Brady.
Present.
We have a quorum?
All right, there's a quorum present. Thank you. We can proceed. I did get a request from the League of Women Voters who would like to make a presentation. And you ladies are the rules ladies, but we're going to bend the rules. I know, don't criticize us for bending the rules because we're going to let you come in and make your presentation now.
I very much appreciate that. My name is Marcia Goldberg. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Shaker Heights. I'm accompanied today by also the president of the Cuyahoga Area League, Susan Jankite. And I'm making a statement for the 3 leagues in the county. This is about the ethics ordinance. We understand you are currently considering amendments to the proposed ethics and inspector general ordinances. We recommend that you take the time to do the best possible job. The League urges you to reject any amendments that would delete or weaken provisions in the current ethics ordinance draft. It already includes or exceeds many of the Transition Ethics Work Group's recommendations, and it supplements Ohio law. At the same time, we urge you to support any amendments that clarify its enforcement provisions. The code before you is strong, but it lacks a coherent outline of who carries out what duties and how complaints must be processed. We hope you will adopt amendments correcting these deficits. The handout we have prepared and given you, it should have been distributed to you.
We haven't.
Spells out in more detail what we believe the ordinance still needs. It's not a long list. We recommend that you take whatever time is required, including extra weeks if necessary, to get it right before you pass it. So that's all the League is asking of you. Thank you very, very much for letting me speak.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public comment before we proceed? All right, we have a very long agenda today, and I thought that we would start with item 8 is the first one, and go through these and ask if there are discussions or questions on any particular one. I know there'll be a number of discussions on the budget items that are the budget adjustments, but so can I sort of start going down the numbers, and if people have comments, then we can just proceed? All right, any comment on number 8, on item 8? Or item 9? These matters have been referred to the Human Resources Committee, should be on for passage tonight. Number 10, also matters that have gone to the Human Resource Committee. Item 11, consideration of adoption. This is an employment issue. And item 12, I'm sure there's going to be some discussion unless council would like to hold this until the regular meeting. Item 12 is discussion of Senate Bill 5. We can hold this to the regular meeting, or we can have some discussions now. Being no comment, we will proceed. Item 14 has to do with the proposed ordinance for public parking, free parking for the public. Item 15, I think we probably called for some discussion. Item 15 was on the agenda for a second reading tonight for the item, discussion of the Board of Control. Would we like to have some discussion on that? Mr. Miller?
Madam President, item number 14 is the...
I'm sorry, 15.
15 is the procurement and contracting policy for the county, and we did a lot of work on this in committee, and the committee set up a structure in which contracts of medium size are going to be referred to the Board of Control. However, there was also a feeling that we wanted to give all members of council a little bit more time to look at this, and also we got some input from the county prosecutor's office, primarily of a technical nature, and so it needs a little bit of additional work. So we would like to have this read as the second reading, but then referred back to the Public Works Committee to do a little more work on this ordinance.
Mr. Miller, would you like to give sort of a Board of Control 101 in about 5 minutes or less for the public, for people who don't understand this? Because people might be listening or watching this that really don't understand the process. And after that, I have a couple questions.
Madam President, yes, I can do that. I'll try to do it on the fly.
Like Board of Controls for dummies or something.
What we're proposing in this ordinance is that any contract for $100,000 or less, the county executive would be able to approve it through its normal procurement process. And for any contract that's over $500,000, it would have to come to council for full council approval. However, for any contract that is more than $100,000 but not more than $500,000, it would be sent to a body called the Board of Control, which was recommended by the Transition Committee and that we're following here. And the Board of Control would consist of 7 members. It would be the county executive, the fiscal officer, the director of purchasing, the director of public works, and 3 members of the county council appointed by the president of council. And the Board of Control would meet weekly. And so it would provide for an opportunity for these medium range items to be moved through the process more quickly. But with 3 members of council present and the leading directors from the administration, if there's questions or issues about a particular contract, they can be raised in the Board of Control and discussed. And the council members on the Board of Control can then provide information to the rest of the council on what the items are that are flowing through the Board of Control. The ordinance also has provisions that a set of public databases are going to be set up that are going to list all contracts that have been completed, and also all contracts of $50,000 or more that have been initiated and are working their way through the process. So the council and the public will be able to have information on what things are flowing through the system. There is a provision that if we become aware of a particular proposed contract that does not require council approval under the regular provisions of this ordinance, but we feel the need to review it, that we can pass a motion of council and have that proposed contract sent to the council for review. So we have a fallback position where we can do additional work on a particular item if we feel we need it, but the overall purpose is to try to provide a good balance in which the council would focus its full council legislative review on the largest and most important items, and the items next greatest of importance would receive some council oversight through the Board of Control, but a lesser amount than the full council review.
Right. And what this does is essentially gives up some of the power of council in the interest of efficiency of government. One of the questions that I had was, it does provide for a clerk and a staff and some computerization. Is there any idea of the executive about how much that would involve? I assume that some of these probably would be people that already work here, that are already doing this kinds of thing.
I'm operating under the assumption that they'll all be people that already work here. We haven't had any discussions about adding staff in order to do it. I can tell you in the Board of Control meetings that we've set up in this interim period, we've just used existing folks from our staff and from Office of Budget and Management.
And do you have any concept about how long these meetings are going to last? Everybody,
Well,
all my council people are rallying to be members of this of the Board of Control, to donate at least another half a day or so.
We've had, all I can do is compare it to the meetings that we've had, and it's there are times when they are 20-minute meetings, and there are times when they are hour-long meetings. It just depends on. I think it's important that a Board of Control process be real oversight, and so we hold a lot of things. Now, some of that is we hold things because we're not as familiar with some of the history of contracts because we're still new here. But that's what I would say. I mean, generally the meetings have lasted between 20 minutes and an hour.
Okay.
And what we try to do, Madam President, is if there's really something that's I try to encourage people not to bring things to Board of Control with the request that, well, if it isn't done, if it's going to be held, it's going to cause all kinds of disruption. I mean, it's important, I think, to let departments know that if you're going to be making requests, don't assume that it is going to be passed that day, because that's where it gets to be a problem. So if it gets involved, we usually just hold it for the next meeting, and that allows there to be discussion that doesn't have to take place at that meeting, so we can be respectful of people's time constraints.
And currently, what day are you meeting?
It seems like every day, but when is it? Mondays.
Okay.
It's a great way to start Monday morning.
What time?
When is 10:45?
7 o'clock?
I usually get there early, but it's usually about 10:45. We have a staff meeting. We have a regular staff meeting at 10 of directors and so forth, and if that goes on long, sometimes it goes a little bit late. But we'll schedule these in a way that's convenient to you all.
All right, Mr. Greenspan.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jaman. I thought you said.
No, I did, but I got my answer.
Madam Chair, if you care, I could comment about the city of Parma.
Okay.
That's a statutory city because we're non-chartered, and under state law, any contract goes before a Board of Control before the council passes it. And in our situation, the auditor staff would be the clerical part of the Board of Control. Okay.
Your city auditor.
The city auditor, correct. And So even if it was going to be passed by council, we actually had to have the Board of Control recommendation for it to take effect. And they would meet weekly.
Now, ours, if it's over $500,000, it will not go to the Board of Controls, it automatically come to us.
Madam Chairperson.
Yeah, right. Mr. Brady.
I know there's still some more discussion to be had over this issue, but I generally am favorable to the concept because I think with 11 committees operating and with a limited amount of staff people in the council and time, that that this is something that I'm sympathetic to, the idea of having a way to move things along. We can also, as Councilman Miller mentioned, flag anything that we think needs flagged. I generally think this is probably a good idea.
Any other discussion? Yeah, Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I guess maybe this is more of a question to the executive. On the contracts, and Councilmember Miller and I were talking about this yesterday, if a contract has a value of, say, $100,000, and it's a multiple prime contract where it's broken out into multiple parts that fall below the $100,000, have you been looking at the contract, the program itself in the aggregate of contracts, or have you been dividing it up? I guess my point is, if we set a threshold of $100,000 and a program has a budget of a contract of $100,000, but it's broken out into 5 $20,000 components. In the aggregate, the program meets the minimum threshold for the Board of Controls, but individually the contracts do not. Have you run into that situation yet? And
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that we're trying to have kind of truth in budgeting, because two things. One is we're suspicious, and this just came up the other day. David's there he is. This just came up the other day, actually, because David Merriman, who's extremely efficient and it runs our Board of Control meetings, and he's been fantastic at it, by the way. But we've looked for that, and we've kind of warned the departments that we want them to consolidate requests, because we don't want to make it. And I think it was not that I've seen it happen a lot, but we have been cognizant of it. And we're still working out bugs in the system, but we've said, look, we want to make sure these things aren't chopped up artificially. The other thing that we have kind of cautioned directors about is if the cutoff is $100,000, we don't want to see a contract for $99,000. If the contract is $500,000, we don't want to see, or the cutoff is $500,000, we don't want to see $499,000. Now, sometimes that happens. It just happens, but it's also been something that has a troubling history that has happened before, where people are artificially reducing bids so that they don't have to go through certain criteria. So we're cognizant of it, and we're certainly open to any suggestions about how to make sure that we don't do that. But we've been trying to reinforce it with our staff that we want it to be a true and accurate picture of the actual cost of a contract, and include as much as possible into that. And whenever possible, we're going to default to the higher standard, not a lower level of oversight.
Right. Madam President, because I think Councilmember Miller and I were talking about maybe crafting language that the program itself will be looked at, not the contract.
I'm totally fine with that.
And then further, we talked about also providing additional either amendments or provisions within this policy, or additional legislation that would restrict the change order process, require more oversight, and also the use of contingency funding. So there's a little more control over the use of contingency funds as well. So we're still trying to figure out where to include it in a document, whether it be this document or a separate document.
Mr. Schrein.
Thank you. Mr. Fitzgerald, again, the way I see this is that irrespective of which one of the three techniques are being used, using the same background information, whether or not we go into more depth, but it would be that, are we going to look at the quality of the vendor? Are we going to look at their creditworthiness, their ability to complete projects? I don't think it makes any difference whether or not we're looking at the Board of Control. They should all be asking the same questions of every one of these bidders, and I assume that just because one is being done on a more expedited method by the fact that it's being controlled at $100,000 and less directly by you, I assume that we're going to be using all the same techniques.
Well, you would think that you would hope that the level of or the questions that would be asked and the issues that would be raised would be the same. What I want to avoid even the appearance of is that we're splitting something up so that I'm able to approve something without council having a look at it. The other thing is, besides just, I tell you, the way that we've approached our Board of Control meetings so far is not just the quality, who is the vendor and what internal controls might they have in terms of making sure that money is being spent properly, but just whether or not the item itself is consistent with what we're trying to do with the county. So, for instance, more than any other category of expenditures, the ones that we have held have been on the IT side, because we know that we're going to be overhauling the way that we do IT. And previously, the county was very segregated and isolated in the way that it did its IT functions, and we know that we're going to be going towards some coordination. So when there have been requests for, I'm not saying we haven't approved them, but we've really tried to be cognizant of IT contracts that that maybe could be deferred for a certain period of time. There are a lot of contracts that have been where it's been typical to have a 1-year renewal or a 2-year renewal, and we've said, why don't we do 6 months, 9 months? You've seen that we've proposed that a few other times. So those are some other, besides the things you mentioned, those are the kind of broad philosophical principles we've tried to apply in our decision making.
Yeah, I think as we come out of the gate with these new policies and programs, I just think it's incumbent upon us to send a message to both staff and to vendors that they shouldn't be out there forum shopping to try and find the forum that they feel most comfortable, because I believe the standard should be the same irrespective of which way. If they're responsive and a responsible party, that should come out no matter which one of these 3 techniques.
Well, speaking of that, if I could, Madam President, just related to that topic, and we'll make an announcement about it sometime later, but we are coordinating, we're going to be coordinating basically a seminar for vendors, and that's coming soon. We're doing it through the Inspector General's office, and we've actually been having conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I think they're going to play a role in it. So we're going to do some things proactively about what our expectations and requirements are of vendors. So I think that's consistent with what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the Board of Control?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I understand that council is going to be passing any contract over $500,000, but just, so that we're all in tune, or one county, I think we should be looking for a recommendation from the Board of Control before we would have final passage on the contract.
Mr. Miller?
Madam President, our current inclination is not to have contracts be approved by both the Board of Control and the County Council. The current conception is that it be one or the other. We want to try to find the right balance between providing some good oversight and also being able to keep processes moving, and we don't want approval processes to be too cumbersome. I think that what we're going to need to do is find some ways to get some information earlier, and I think the concern is that some of the stuff we're getting pretty late, and we want to figure out how to back that up a little bit as opposed to setting up an additional approval process.
Sure. I understand what the councilman's saying, but my feeling is it's not approving, it's a recommendation. And I just want to make sure that, especially on a major project, that we're in the same wavelength. So the approval is going to be by the county council. We're not going to ask them to approve, but I think there should be a recommendation. That's just my feeling, so that, and certainly they're just not going to throw a $500,000 and above contract to the council and say, okay, handle it. I mean, we're going to be depending on the process of the administration to get all the data to us in timely and orderly fashion. So I'm just thinking that they should weigh in on what their recommendation would be.
Well, aren't we going to be sending these to committee also and get a committee review before they pass them?
Yes.
So we'll be able to get, additional information then. And most things would be recommended by the executive. So, all right, we'll consider that and go through the, whatever process we need to go through. All right. Yes.
I have a follow-up question to that of Mr. Germana's. So the actual process then for contracts above the 100 will go to the below 5, will go to the Board of Control, and that panel will look over these contracts to make sure they meet whatever specifications they need to meet, and then it will come back, then it will come to council as a whole, or it never gets here?
Madam President?
Mr. Miller, go ahead.
The contracts that are over $100,000 but not over $500,000 would be approved by the Board of Control, and if approved by the Board of Control, would not come to the council.
I always thought, Madam Chair, perhaps, and I understand that your committees, most of the council is comfortable with that threshold, between 1 and 5. However, I've always been one to think that I would like to see more contracts than that small number that we're probably going to see. But maybe that means I need to be on the Board of Control, which not necessarily what I want to do, but maybe that's what I'm saying. But I'm just throwing that out there that that was just I just wanted to get the mechanism and understand what would we actually see.
Mr. Miller, am I correct to say that the Board of Control, all those contracts are available to us, either be on internet or we'd be supplied with the information, everything is passed anyway?
Yes.
So you would have an opportunity when you have nothing to do in the evening to read them all?
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
I think these are pretty obvious and legitimate kinds of questions I would expect to hear. I think part of the idea, and I'm assuming that the councilman is borrowing part of the concept from the way the state operates, is that it's really a big county, and we've just gotten started, and trying to get a sense of scale is something we're still trying to get a handle on, and that's part of the discussion really, because we could end up being whether this is exactly where the cutoff should be or where the discussion should be, maybe that's open for, maybe that's a question. But it's too big of a county. There are too many contracts, and we can't manage it in the way a suburban council would manage smaller contracts, because there's just too many of them. It's just too big for that.
All right, Mr. Schrein.
Yes, and to reaffirm with Mr. Brady, because at the $500,000 threshold, that represents approximately 20% of the contracts out there as far as item numbers, but it represents nearly 80% of the dollars that will be coming before the council for. So I think that it's going to, if we want to dig into it, that's where we need to be digging our time and energy into those committees and dig into that. Just the same as whatever the dollar limit is that is going to go to the executive, whether it's $1 or to 100,000, we too are not going to see those. We're just going to assume that they're being done, and I just am comfortable with whoever's on the Board of Controls that's our cross check as far as what's going on there.
Madam Chair? Well, for an example, the Justice Affairs Committee's been overseeing and looking at the contracts for the Juvenile Justice Center, and there's a range of contracting, prices, which, as a project as a whole, I personally want to see all aspects of that project, and this would divert, portions of that project to the Board of Control. I'm just saying that when we're specializing in an aspect of something here, I think it's important that we maintain that specialty. And so I just want to make sure that the communication's there for us to be able to continue on with a particular project or something that we're involved in beyond just the surface. And as a learning curve, as a new county council person that's less than 90 days, I to some extent want to learn as much as I can about a particular project or as many aspects of county government operation as possible. So I'm just putting that out there.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I would point out that there is that provision in the proposed ordinance that says that that anything that ordinarily would not be required to be sent to council, if we want to see it, we can see it. And so if we passed a motion to council saying that that any contracts relating to the Justice Center project, regardless of dollar amount, we want to see them, well, then they'd have to be sent here. So the ordinance does create some delegation of our authority, but then it also has that fallback position that we can pull back anything that we feel that we want to.
Okay.
All right, anything further on the Border Control? Okay, let's move on to item 16. I believe that's going to be adopted. Mr. Miller has brought in the public records law, and we can probably discuss that at the regular meeting. I see we do have Judge First here. Were you here on matters for the Common Pleas Court and the Clerk of Courts? Item number 17? Okay. This is to approve not to exceed $774,000 for the purchase of computer equipment for a Common Pleas Court. Right. And Judge First, I just got a call from Judge Griffin, who feels that we don't really have enough to do, who informed me that January will be the 100th anniversary of the county courthouse. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And that we should anticipate, doing something to celebrate that event, marking that event. So I'll be giving you a call, and we'll see what we can figure out. Okay. All right, Mr. Popovich.
Madam President, distinguished members of council, the Common Pleas Court General Division is here today for two matters, two requisitions, that being 19882, 19884, for a little over almost $1.1 million to purchase computer equipment for the Common Pleas Court and the Clerk of Court's offices. It's a combined purchase. This process started back in actually May of last year with getting quotes. We received ADP board approval in October of last year, and just through a matter of events, we're now here almost April, and we're still trying to get computers purchased and software. Our current hardware and software has served us definitely well. Most of our computers are 7, some are 8 years old in the Common Pleas Court. Most of these computers are no longer under warranty, of course. To fix computers at this age, it costs, in many instances, more to fix them and or just as much than to purchase a new computer, given today's prices for computers. Our current software is Office 2000. Again, this software that the court and the clerk uses, again, has served us well over the years. But we're at a point now where Microsoft, we identified last year that there was a point where they were going to sunset Office 2000. And we started this process last year, but now we're seeing the effect of that. The court, we're not able to open up files that come to us either by other public entities, private entities, and or the bar that come to us. And so it's somewhat frustrating on occasion when we have to call them back and tell them to basically either send it to us in writing and or they're going to have to save it in some other format. So we're running into those issues this year. The equipment will also help us to assist in the transition to e-filing, which we hope to be doing later this year. This equipment will be able to handle, in some cases where we need possibly dual monitors, to be able to view documents, view certain other things at the same time, and so that we no longer maybe have one day, I'm not going to say it's going to happen right away, to be able to at least reduce the amount of printing that we do at the Common Pleas Court, and also to assist the bar, the public, corporate America, in order to move documents to us electronically. You can imagine it's a big undertaking for the clerk's office and for the court. For a court our size, we're considered a large court in the United States, and so this is a big undertaking for us. This new equipment will assist us in that effort as well. Just to let you know, our business model is certainly different than maybe some others. As you can see, our equipment is old, our software is old. We do not change equipment just to change it. We are not on a cycle, per se, to change equipment. we use it until it gets to a point that we can no longer use it. And we're at that critical point today. We don't believe in having the latest technology toys. We believe in purchasing proven technology, and they're certainly prudent, and we plan for our purchases. Our process also allows us to save money by delaying purchases until we really, really need to have it. We have the ability to save money over a period of time. And so I come to you today to let you know no general funds will be needed for the purchase of this equipment. And monies will be used through the court and the clerk's computerization fund, so that these are monies that we saved. We planned for this purchase. We've been prudent in our spending out of this account and to make purchases such as this over periods of time. Overall, I know the cost seems large. It certainly is a large amount of money, but again, we planned for this purchase over a number of years to be able to do this and to assist the taxpayers, to assist you, the executive, to be able to use clerk funds where we can to be able to assist the county's budget. That's all I have. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have at this point.
And would you like to tell them what you're going to do with the old ones, the old computers?
They are going to, I believe, go into, there's a process by which the county allows the old equipment that cannot be used by other places in the county to be used by other entities outside the county. I think nonprofits. I know that someone from the ISC had a better understanding of where that equipment goes than I do. But I believe that in terms of places that maybe a training in those types of areas where that old equipment will go, especially that stuff that's usable, maybe not to the standards that we need, but maybe much better than what they have out in the nonprofit sectors.
Ms. Simon?
Chair, I just wanted council to know that Mr. Popovich made a presentation to the Justice Affairs Committee on Friday and went into great depth about this project. And I believe after listening and reviewing the information that it's a prudent resolution. And thank you very much for your budget and taking care of this through the court computer fund, which it's specialized for. So thank you. So I recommend that council move forward with this.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you. How many computers? What type of equipment are we talking about?
Let's see. I have the exact figures here. Let's see. About 650 PCs. Again, this incorporates not only court, but also the clerk's office as well. Includes monitors and includes, I believe, 4 laptops that we will be using in our court reporters department. We have a technology called real-time court reporting that allows for transcriptions, especially for people who might be hearing impaired that come into our courtrooms. The laptops will allow us to assist in providing them testimony during a court trial. So that's what those laptops will be used for.
And Madam Chair, the software that is part of, that's in Resolution 0110, are those, you mentioned e-filing, are there other modernization software applications or upgrades to what's currently being done that will be used with those funds?
Or we're going to be moving up, I mean, certainly we're at Office 2000, now we'll be moving to Office 2010, which is the standard out there now. Also moving to Windows 7. So we'll be moving to the more current technology in order to assist in that area.
And of course, you know the softball question is, so none of these computers can be used at the Juvenile Justice Center since they need computers?
The old computers?
Yes.
No, I think there's a good reason why we're getting rid of them. So,
just have to ask.
That's all right.
Yes, Mr. Schron.
And the labor cost, is that associated with this as far as doing the install, the software, the loading, any linkage?
Actually, I'm sorry.
Whether it's going to connect over to the servers and things like that. Is there another line item that will be showing up in addition to the equipment lines?
There is not. Our staff will assist in doing all of that install and all that among our own IT staff. Which, if you have questions, I actually have our IT director here today. But no, we will take care of that internally.
Okay. So and
we will not be coming before you to ask for installation charges.
Okay. And then is there a server connection that's going on behind the scenes, or is this included in here, where they're installing multiple servers and things like that can make this operational?
The servers are already in place. We are going to be updating our servers as well, but this technology will be already connecting back to our servers.
Okay, so the servers have already been updated and upgraded?
No, we're in the process of doing that as well.
So that'll be another item that we'll see more than likely?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it'll, yeah, I don't know if it's coming before council, but I believe it's on the calendar to be processed later this year.
And I'm not surprised that you can't use a 6 or 7-year-old computer someplace other than to scrape the parts out and try and get the silver and the gold off the content.
Yeah, we actually steal parts from those now to fix our other computers.
I'm not surprised.
So,
Okay, anything further? All right, thank you. And so are you, now which items did you cover? 110, 111, 112?
817A and B, I believe. 109 and 110.
Okay. All right, do we have someone, thank you, anything
you're welcome.
further? Do we have
Thank you very
someone
much.
here on 111? That's for juvenile court. I think the next 3 items are for juvenile court.
Madam Chair? Again, the Justice Affairs Committee met on items 11, 12, and 13 on Friday and reviewed those and had representatives from juvenile court present to explain these purchases and wirings. And we, as chair of that committee, would recommend passage of this as well. It's within the budget set for the Juvenile Justice Center.
All right, thank you.
Madam-
All right,
Madam President?
Yes.
I was just informed that there will be some representatives of, from juvenile court that will be here at 6 o'clock.
All right, so if we have any other questions, we can ask them then. Thank you. All right, item 114, our biweekly cash transfers. I'm sure there are a number of questions on some of these, and if anyone would like to start. Mr. Rubino, you're on the hot seat.
Very well. Good evening, Matt Rubino, Office of Budget Management. Here to entertain any questions you may have.
Yes, Mr. Miller. I'm trying to find my page, so go ahead. Well, it's...
About a fourth of the way back.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Madam President, to Mr. Rubino, could you explain the $357,000 transfer related to domestic relations child support?
Madam President, to Councilman Miller, they are realigning their budget. That's for Domestic Relations Court. They've decided to move the budget allocation for their controlled costs, which are their IT and space cost, back to the administrative budget. So it's in line with the Title IV-D contract. So it's more or less a maintenance item on their end.
So, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Rubino, you're saying it doesn't have any impact on how services are provided. It just is kind of technical in nature.
Yes, Councilman.
Okay. Madam President, to Mr. Rubino, I'd like to ask about one item for which a budget correction has not been submitted, which is that I learned this week that the intention of the administration is not to provide continuation funding for the Ombudsman's office, and I'm not ready to opine about the administration's judgment on that matter. But my question is that if those services are not provided there, I'm wondering what the administration's intention is as to how those services would be provided, because I think there needs to be some kind of mechanism for when people have gone through the usual channels and they're not getting their issues resolved, that they can go someplace and have someone help them work their way through the bureaucracy.
Madam President, to Councilman Miller, the Ombudsman is normally, in past years, fallen under the purview of the Office of Human Services. So I'd probably have to defer any detailed questions to either the executive staff or if Rick Warner's here would speak to that. It's been an ongoing question or policy debate as far as whether or not we continue to fund the Ombudsman. So I'm aware of your concern on that.
I have a question on all of these items where it says personal services. Does that mean that that's going to go for salaries?
Yes, Madam President. We have 3 resolution categories. The budget is adopted at 3 different reso categories or legal categories: personal services, which would be for wages and fringe benefits, other expenses, which are the non-payroll, and then capital outlay. So
Oh,
that
I'm
would be-
sorry. I didn't know that Mr. Werner was going to hear and respond. I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
Madam President, Mr. Miller, the question with respect to the Ombudsman's Office. For the last couple of budget cycles, I think for 2010 and 2011, the administrator's recommended budget, which was the staff recommendation, to the commissioners, did not include funding for the Ombudsman's Office. I think the commissioners were always very aware of the services that were provided through the Ombudsman's Office, but when we were beginning to need to cut back funding, we believe that we had sufficient customer service resources within each of our, at least the human service departments, that we could address the issues that came up through the Ombudsman's Office for consumers or customers who weren't satisfied with the response that they got from the individual department. Either they came directly to the Office of Health and Human Services, in which I work, or they sometimes went directly to the commissioners. I do believe at the end of 2010, we did a small contract with the Ombudsman's Office, but I think in the 2011 budget that the commissioners passed in November and left for the county executive and the county council, there was, again, no funding for the Ombudsman's Office. So I understand the point you're making, but it was one of the cuts that we felt that we needed to make in 2009 and 2010 based on our budget.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Just for everyone's information, the word from the Ombudsman's Office is that they're continuing to operate under previous funding, but that they're going to be able to do that only for about another 30 days. So we're going to need to be confident that these services can be handled because they're going to run out.
Madam President?
Yes.
I think that conceptually nobody is going to say they're against an ombudsman's office, because it's important for consumers and constituents to have other avenues to go through other than the individual county employee they happen to be dealing with. What we're trying to do is design a system that encourages customer service and resolution of customer problems across the whole system. And we have been, and it's been hit or miss, to be honest with you, in terms of there are certain departments that do that very well. And by the way, most of those are probably in the human services field. That goes from everything from having customer satisfaction surveys that they ask recipients of services to fill out, to some of the individual agencies actually have separate contracts with kind of third-party verifying entities that try to measure their performance. There are other departments that don't do it at all. The utilization of the Ombudsman's Office, and this is no disrespect to their work, because I think that they're good people that have done good work, has not been fully integrated, I don't think, across all functions of county government. So that's kind of what we're struggling with. As a matter of fact, to come full circle to some conversations we had earlier about the Board of Control, there is a certain program that I believe is, I want to say it's in Employment and Family Services, that had to do with customer satisfaction and making sure that customers were being treated with respect and that their requests were being expedited. And I held it not because it hadn't worked, but because I wanted to see if that was. It doesn't necessarily make sense to do it in one part of county government and do it to a really high degree, and then have other parts of county government where it doesn't happen at all. So I think what we owe you is, if we're going to say we're not going to fund the Ombudsman's Office, we need to say, look, here's, and I can't provide this to you tonight, but I will shortly, say these are the kind of problems that they resolved, and here's how they would be resolved under a new system. Not, here are the problems that were resolved, and now good luck to those folks. I hope they can get a hold of Mr. Werner or myself on the phone. You know, we have to be able to tell you, here's what they handled, and here's how we think we can provide that service under a new system that maybe is a little bit less expensive, but we might actually get a better result.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I got the email from the office of the ombudsman myself, and I called the lady that sent the email, and I was just, off the top of my head said, I can understand the way county government was with all these separate offices and so on and so forth, and people get bounced around. You probably really needed it, but now it's one government here. And quality control, customer service, and so on. I mean, it's the responsibility of the administration to have some kind of standard. I don't know if we need an outside agency because they don't really solve problems. All they do is help with the referral process. I think this is something that should be done internally with the county government. And again, we're not separate individually different departments, and you shouldn't be getting bounced around. And there should be a place right in county government that you can find customer service or where you need to go. I don't think you need a separate office for that. So that's just my opinion.
Mr. Brady?
Madam President, I also got a call from a volunteer who works with the Ombudsman's office, and looking forward to the administration's presentation. I have to admit I didn't know it was under your umbrella, Mr. Warner, because I was sort of thinking of all of county government. But I guess the obvious question here is that for the 11 of us is, we're starting to get a lot of those calls ourselves, and that's natural. And so we're more than interested in how this is going to be set up, because we're going to have some internal way beyond just individually trying to answer people's questions about everything in county government, to work with you as well on that.
All right, thank you. I did have one other question on the transition advisory. It's $100,000 that was transferred, to the general fund. I trust that it was, my investigation is it was used for a good source, a good thing, but we would like to, the council feels that they need to have a part in this transition money, that we'd like to be apprised of when internal transfers are made, because that was, we're part of this too. And for instance, this is the first that we heard about this transfer of transition money. We read it on the budget, so I think that we should have some input on that, and perhaps refer to the Finance Committee or see where this money is going to be allocated.
Madam President, that's a point taken. The $100,000 is a one-time use. It's for the classification study.
Okay.
For
Yeah, that's
positions.
a good thing.
So, as far as other one-time expenses that are out there, I'm not aware of any right now. Not to say that there aren't others being planned, but I did forward some information to Joe Nani on what's left in that allocation for this year.
All right, but then going back to my original question then, like for instance, on page 3, there's an item of $125,000 going to the Cuyahoga County Regional Forensic Science Lab. That's a new lab set up at the coroner's office for $125,000 and $10,000 for other expenses. This money comes from, I guess, the sheriff, the prosecutor, and the coroner's office. They have a fund. Will that be for salaries for one person or a number of persons?
I think that's for lab time for right now. The plan for the forensic crime lab is still being discussed.
So it has not been set up yet?
Not instituted and not implemented fully, no. From what I understand, they're still in the planning stages. What they've accommodated at this point is some funding, some dollars that were set aside for capital improvements to the facility and to do their major purchases of equipment. What is left to be determined is how the lab is going to be staffed, how it's going to operate, and what the actual or eventual funding will be. Ideally, we would like to split, or we had planned on splitting off a portion of the coroner or medical examiner's ongoing operational budget for the lab. We're still waiting to see, as they go back and rework the plan for the lab, how that's going to work going forward. So right now what they're doing is a lot of prep work, as far as I understand.
Because this lab then will assist like all of the suburbs and smaller police departments who don't have these kind of forensic labs. There'll be one countywide lab. 'Cause I think some of those smaller cities are contracting with Cleveland or some of the larger cities.
I believe that to be the case, Madam President, yes.
Okay, and so this would be set up and available to all the county agencies. All right. And then the item before that was also about, I think we got some money from the federal government for a DNA backlog reduction program. Does anybody know what that's about? No? Okay.
I don't know the specifics of that one, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I was just curious, because I know that when I was on the grand jury, there was a huge backlog. When they find blood at a crime scene, they take it, and eventually they do the DNA test, and if you've been in the penitentiary, your DNA's in the system, then they can link you up with a particular crime. And I was wondering if that was what this was for.
Madam President, I believe these are to clear up some of the cases that have exceeded their preferred amount of time to get them expedited. That's as far as I can tell from the request.
All right, any other questions on the adjustment accounts? All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one question. Just so I'm clear that I have a full understanding of how these transfers add up, I'm looking at almost the very last one, and it's Services Center, and it's 80,000 from personnel services. Never mind. And 50,000 from. I gotcha. I thought there was two columns.
Yeah, the transfers will always net out. We're always transferring the same amount to and from. It may be from one account to two, but the total from and to amounts will be the same. There's a net wash on those.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else on the transfers? So we can move on to the next item. These are all, I believe, items that are going to be referred to committees. I don't know if there's any of them that would wish to be discussed. Item 18 has several pages of items that will all be referred to committee. I did have, the people from juvenile court are going to be here at 6? Yeah, because I had a question on page 9, item R, regarding additional funds for Applewood, Beechbrook, Belfair, and I think we probably need the people from juvenile court to answer those questions. Oh, okay, good. Yes, good start. All right. Well, we did have something. Thank you, Ms. Schmatzer. We have a number of items on here that kept me up late. I was trying to figure them out. Starting on page 12, there are these sewer licenses. Is Bonnie still here? Did she leave? Okay. We have a number of items. First, some people that are making applications for the sewer builder's license. Some people who have been approved, they went to committee and they've been approved for sewer district licenses. And we have a number of pages of lists, and in an attempt not to kill any more trees and to speed up our processes. My question is this really a legislative function to approve these licenses? Could not they just be approved by the executive? They come in several times a year, and these people need a specific license in order to do sewer cleaning, and I'm not really sure that council needs to vote on these. And give you something else to do, Mr. Fitzgerald.
I don't know why you'd want to, but depends what your passion in life is. But I mean, what you're suggesting makes sense to me. I don't know if there's something Bonnie can add anything to that.
Bonnie too, and Madam President, I would agree with you, and that's one of the things that we looked at in the committee, whether it in the Public Works Committee is whether these licenses really truly do need to come to council. The purpose of these licenses is to ensure that we have good qualified contractors that are performing work on the sewers. It's a pre-qualification. It gives them a license to do work so that we're just not getting anybody working on our sewers, that they're qualified contractors. My experience with the state is we do a lot of pre-qualifications with contractors on different items of work. It does not go to the Board of Controls or to the state legislator for approval. It's done at the staff level. They review the qualifications and document the pre-qualifications and give them the certifications for that pre-qualification. So that is a process that I think we can look into changing in the future.
Mr. Morales, do you think that we would need an ordinance then to change that? I guess it was done by the commissioners who were legislative and executive combined. So do you think that we would need an ordinance to give up our right to approve sewer licenses?
What I will do is research the provisions of the code dealing with these licenses and offer guidance to you as to whether or not they need to be here in the first place. It is a practice that the commissioners, the old legislative authority, had undertaken. I will research the matter and offer guidance to you and to the county executive on it.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
My belief is that unless the law department finds something in the code that why we have to approve these, I don't think any ordinance would be required. I think it would be sufficient just for us and the administration to agree that they don't have to send them to us.
But we could probably just do it by letter or something. Send them a letter and say that we don't need those anymore.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just as a point of information, in reviewing this, we did see that the language as far as insurance was a little outdated. So we contacted Mike Deaver. He's looking into it. So as long as we're looking at an ordinance, we want to make sure that we don't use the old insurance language when we use the current standard. And that's being looked into right now.
So in other words, are you suggesting they just review the whole process of how they certify these people?
Yeah, and part of the resolution had a figure for insurance which is outdated. It just has not been looked at for a number of years. Thank you.
All right. So you've noted that. All right. All right, and then Mr. Jones, that'll take some cases off your agenda. Just a few. All right. All right, are there any other items on the agenda that we need to discuss before going into regular session? I have been notified that our executive session has been canceled. There was a matter that we were going to discuss regarding a pending legal matter, and it has been canceled. So that will shorten up our 6 o'clock meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do have a question about on page 17 of 18 of our agenda, item 20, consideration of an ordinance for first reading and referral to committee. This has to do with authorizing the county executive to grant a permanent easement to Ferris Realty for the sum of $500 for the right to access, install, maintain, relocate, repair, and replace a sign over and under certain portions of county-owned property. We've passed several pieces of legislation concerning this. There's this very small parcel that Cuyahoga County owns in front of the Development Disabilities Building, and it's the gravel road that's 500 feet. And I'm just wondering if we could move this to suspension, because Ferris Metals, can't. In order to get this thing completed, we need to have the easement so that they could have access to the sign over the county property. So I'd appreciate if we, because we've passed everything already having to do with this project, and this is kind of holding up the works. If we refer it to committee, Unless there's something that's holding it up from the administration side, I'd like to see this move to suspension of the rules.
Doesn't appear to be any objections. So we can do that. Is it okay with Ms. Siwan? Is it all set with your department? You don't need anything further? Okay, so when we get to that item, you can ask for suspension of the rules.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Don't say it, Mr. Miller, because I'm ahead of you. Do we have to amend the agenda before we start the meeting?
No, at the meeting.
Okay, we don't have to amend the agenda, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
What's the item number?
The item is
It's number
page
20.
20 on page 17 of 18. Yeah. Mr. Schrein.
Thank you, Madam President. It's just a point of order that in yesterday's Economic Development Committee, we did not actually vote out 2011-002 A2 for immediate passages within section 19. It's on page 12 of 18. However, I'm sure that the borrower would welcome the opportunity if we would do that, but to be technically within accordance with what came out of committee yesterday, we did do that for the other item. As far as the item 0101, moved for immediate adoption of that on the second reading, which is on page 16, but we did not do that on page 12. But again, if going through with the parties and county executive, if there's no reason not to, also there's no reason that to the advantage of the lender and the borrower to actually move that along.
All right, give me a number again. You're on page 12. Which number?
Letter G.
So you wish to pass that in suspension of the rules?
It's already there. We did not actually bring it out for suspension of the rules yesterday because when asked the question whether 3 readings would be appropriate, Mr. Kelly said that 3 readings would be appropriate. But however, I see it's already here for.
Voice vote that we're going to vote on and pass it tonight.
I understand that, but that was not the Economic Development Department did not ask for that yesterday. So it's in an expedited format. Again, there's no harm, no foul by moving it faster. I don't believe. I think we had all the questions asked and answered. The only reason that that was even held was whether the committee members all received the electronic correspondence that they requested yesterday. I assume, did everybody receive it? Were there any open questions, Mr. Greenspan or anybody like that, that all received electronic communications?
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
To Councilman Schrein, am I correct that the committee did move the item from committee to council, but only it did not include in that motion to recommend it for passage under suspension? Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Miller.
Madam President, in that case, the committee's report is just a recommendation, and it's within the prerogative of the president and the clerk to put it on the agenda for passage under suspension. So it's no problem.
All right, thank you. I see the administrator is here from juvenile court. Were there questions on the juvenile court matter? We discussed it in committee, and I think everybody in the committee was satisfied, but if any of the other members had question about the juvenile court issues, I actually did have a question. If I could find it now. My question had to do with, and I got to find the right page. We had allocated money before for various residential treatment programs, and we have some today, and these are on the recommendation of juvenile court. So are these programs that the court refers children to as opposed to Department of Human Services?
Exactly, absolutely. These are children that are adjudicated delinquent or unruly in the Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Division.
And I particularly noted, I'm on page 10 of 18, Cardington and the Cleveland Christian Home, they were rated average in the material over here. I actually read all the stuff yesterday or last night or this morning or whatever. And I was concerned about who does the rating, and if they're only rated average, where are we using them, or?
Madam Chair, could you please repeat the two vendors that you just identified?
Carrington Youth Academy and the Cleveland Christian Home. And we're giving Carrington Youth Academy, it's located in East Cleveland, we're giving them $916,000. I was curious as to how many persons are served for $900,000, and how many children are served by this Cleveland Christian Home.
First, if I may, by way of explanation, these two contracts refer to shelter care services, which are a bit different, thank you, Joe, than traditional residential treatment or short-term residential treatment, which is also on the agenda today through the form of the Youth and Family Community Partnership. Shelter care is a part of our detention center continuum. There are juveniles that we would have to or choose to not stay detained in secure detention center for a significant period of time. The most notable population are juveniles that are needing to be removed from their home because of their unruly behaviors, and we need to find a place to stay for them, but by law they cannot be placed in secure detention. That's contrary to federal law. On any given day, we have 32 children in shelter care. We currently are limited to these two vendors because they are the only ones in town that are interested in providing these services. In fact, a year ago, we did have 3 vendors. One of them, for financial reasons, chose to bow out, and that was Parmadale. We are the ones that rate them. We are not profoundly distressed by the quality of services, but we meet with them very regularly. We monitor them, and we are very, very clear at all times with what their obligations are and what our expectations are of what they need to do for our juveniles who are residing there.
So what would be an example of a shelter? So a child comes in and their parents are just able to care for them, or?
Oh, the child comes in because they have been a runaway. And no matter what their parents do, they are so incorrigible, there's nothing that the parent can do, or the parent is lacking in the skills or the services that they need to take care of that child. We hope to get to that point to equip them with what they may need, but in the interim, they need a place to stay. Either the parent is refusing or unable to care for the child. So we place them in shelter care. Once upon a time, they would have been in secure detention, but as I indicated, that is prohibited by law. So for a short period of time, as we assess the child, as we assess the family, and as we put together a case plan to assist that family, and while the legal proceedings are taking place, the child is placed in a shelter care facility which offers a modest level of services. More than anything else, it's really a safe place for that child to be for a short period of time.
And about how many children we serve for this $916,000?
Well, we have an average daily population of 32. Carrington Youth Academy has double the capacity of the Cleveland Christian Home. I can't give you the total number of bed days right now, but I can certainly provide that for you. The average number of youth that are served, and quantitatively, that's really the average number of bed days that we have a need for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
same page.
Okay.
The Glen Mill School, could somebody at juvenile court, and specifically the individuals that are sending the children to Glen Mills out of state, could they justify that in a report in writing to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No
And
problem.
why specifically there isn't anything in Ohio that could qualify for what Glen Mills provides?
Certainly. And I could give you the very short answer right now, but I will, of
Well,
course,
I know we
reduce it
could,
to writing.
because we could send them to university school here, but they,
Well,
you know.
actually, Mr. Councilman, the attractive thing at Glen Mills is that they are a vocational training school, and they are the only one in the region. There is not one located in the state of Ohio. The second major reason that consideration is given to them is because they actually have the cheapest per diem than any provider that we use for any type of residential placement. But I will be more than happy to provide you with a true litany of everything that they do and the costs and the justification of those costs.
And how the children are chosen.
Certainly.
Thank you.
You're most kindly welcome.
Mr. Rogers?
Thank you, Madam President. I was wondering, are you able to speak on the resolutions regarding the purchase of computer equipment for the court?
I can speak to the computers and a little bit about the printers. On the servers and the wiring, however, I would have to rely upon Mr. John Hunter or someone else from the ISC.
I had a question. I noticed that that the Court of Common Pleas was using equipment from Dell for their purchases of the computers and the related equipment. And I noticed that you guys are using ordering some from Dell and others from another M&J Technologies. I'm just wondering why you chose to go with two companies as opposed to just the one.
Happy to begin to respond, Mr. Rogers. It really isn't the court that determined the specific vendor. That happens through the competitive bidding process that takes place through Office of Procurement and Diversity and the Information Services Center. Just the other day, while appearing before Ms. Simon's subcommittee, it was explained that you get a certain discount by the amount that you are purchasing. And if you broke the purchase down by these three types of amounts, our county got the better discount. Mr. Hunter, do you need to add or correct what I just
described? John Hunter, Director of the Information Services Center. There is a preference sometimes by certain things we standardized on Dell and HP. We would have aggregated the order together if we would have received a further discount. Based on that, both courts agreed that they would switch their platform if a deeper discount would have been available. It was not. So we left the courts with their specific preferences.
Madam President, I noticed that both contracts indicate computers. So are there indeed two different types of computers being purchased for the courts, and are they being delineated between, who gets what type of computer, or?
Yes, the common division of the courts had preferred the Dell product. Juvenile court in the past has preferred the HP product. Both meet the standardization specs that we have for computers. Both use Intel processors and specific memory that all fit within our standard configuration. So as far as your question with juvenile court and the Dell servers, those were specified by the Court Smart vendor as their preferred platform. So those were purchased because of those specifications.
And all systems are compatible with each other?
Yes, they are.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Shrine?
Before leaving, in regards to the IT, would you have had a preference as to having a single platform and identification following the Southwest Airlines model of a single platform?
No. With the county, if we standardize on one or two vendors, their platforms are very specific. I mean, they're very generic, so it causes us really no issue either way.
No difference with maintenance, service, anything that you folks do as a field?
No.
And training issues as far as training your staff to be up to speed on one platform versus another?
No, there are not.
Madam President, I
Yes, Mr. Greenspan.
have a question. Actually, this is maybe more for Mr. Fitzgerald. On the, I know that you appointed a chief information officer, and I don't recall the start date for that individual off the top of my head. On a going forward basis, what type of integration, or what are your original thoughts, or what are your thoughts in discussing with the CIO how these purchases whether it be a single standard platform or how everything would integrate together?
Well, I'm probably not the greatest person to talk about how that it should work, but I can talk about it in general principle. He's going to start in the first, I want to say the first 10 days of April. I don't recall the date off the top of my head, but he'll be here shortly. And as I mentioned previously, we're trying to defer either software or hardware purchases that we can, and we're trying to, if it's a renewal, let's say, of a maintenance contract on the IT side, we're trying to do that when we can, even on a month-to-month basis. I think what has to happen is we have to take all of these disparate functions of county government and try to figure out if they're being done in silos or if they're being done in some kind of a complementary fashion, so that you have a long-term, basically a long-term IT plan for this entire system. And how does it work even, and how does it even work in terms of the different bureaucracies between the data center and information services in terms of staffing? How does that all work? One of the things that I've seen, and this is as a generalist in the area, not as a specialist, is that there's a couple things that are happening that I think that we need to get away from. One is that we have specialty programs that are done by individual companies where the contracts are given out as a sole source contract. Sometimes the proprietors of those specialty computer programs are either longtime vendors of the county, or they are sometimes even former employees of the county. And we've got to make sure that the county isn't being taken advantage of in those kind of contracts. Because what I've even noticed so far, and this is common in the industry, but you have almost planned obsolescence in terms of some of the systems, and you also have systems that it's hard to get away from them because they are not compatible with any other system. And once you have bought into the system, then the maintenance must be performed by that company, because they're the only ones who have the proprietary ability to do the maintenance on it, and then they can hold you hostage a little bit on that. So we've got to make sure that we're not we have multiple individual contracts in every single department, and I mean, if you John would know better what the number is. It's in the dozens, or if not hundreds, of separate contracts. And we've got to figure out if there's a better way to coordinate all those things. That may take, by the way, an initial investment. It is not always easy to save money right away by just canceling programs. Sometimes it means you've got to have a more coherent system, and that means junking some old systems and adapting a more compatible system that can actually share information with each other. The other thing is that I think we've got to look at, and the new CIO is really going to have to look at, is whether or not our staffing level when it comes to IT is appropriate for how much do we want to do in-house and how much do we want to continue to do on a contract basis. So these are all very complicated questions. Now, when it comes to the court system, it's been this, and I think a lot of the discussions about the juvenile justice system have just put a spotlight on that. But they've been kind of neither fish nor fowl, because there's been a traditional deference to the judicial branch, but at the same time, they have relied on the county as well to say, well, we don't have as big of an IT department as you do, and we're going to rely on you. And so I think in a way you have the worst of both worlds, because the county didn't always feel comfortable telling the judges what they were going to get. And I think we just have to clarify that relationship. I had a very interesting conversation recently with a municipal court judge who is a judge of longstanding in the municipal court, about how we could even start to provide services, kind of backroom services, even for municipal courts. Now, that's not something we could force on them, but they're open to have those conversations. The last area, I'm sorry to give you a long answer, but it is a complicated question, and when Mr. Mowry is in town, there's folks on council that have a lot of expertise with IT issues, and I think you should have a dialogue with him about how we're going to go about this process. But there's another role that actually he's played and his department has played down in Broward County, and that is everything outside of county government that happens to be a government entity, whether it be a city or whether it be some kind of, whether it be the sewer district or what have you, what are the efficiencies and what are the collaborations that could be gained there? Now, the county is already starting to reach agreements with municipalities about website services and web-based services and so forth, and that's an important first step. But I think there's a lot of potential there to actually expand the mission of this. What you have now, though, what I've seen in the few months that I've been here is there are an extraordinary number of individual contracts. A lot of them are sole source contracts, which means that there's no competitive bidding. There's a lot of silos where people are not communicating, and I don't think we have an overall comprehensive plan for where the county's going to be when it comes to IT for the next 10 years. Nobody's had that mission before, and for the first time that we will. I don't expect that Mr. Mallory is going to get here on day one and say, here it is, and I hope you like it. It's going to be something where he's really going to have to delve into it, but I do think he's got the right skill set to do it.
All right, thank you. Anything further? All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, this involves item 9C regarding the Tax Incentive Review Council, and not the appointments, but I'm just curious, once again, this is to Mr. Fitzgerald. In the past, the review councils have gone out to the communities to do their annual review of tax abatements and so forth. But one of my mayors reported that he's been asked to bring all of his businesses that are up for review downtown. And I was just curious on a policy matter to make it easier for the businesses and to remove some of these barriers we always talk about with county government and being more business friendly. If we can continue the practice of these councils meeting in the 30 jurisdictions or so that are mentioned in this letter.
They've been consolidated because there were so many that it was pretty duplicative, and most of the feedback we got from individual municipalities were that they were happy not to have dozens of different ones. So that part of it, I think, made sense. I don't have any problem with them doing I don't know that they need to do one in each individual city, but they could certainly do them regionally or by council district or something of that nature. Be happy to consider that request. That would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other items for discussion during the work session? Otherwise, we could take a break. And yes, Mr. Miller.
I have one item by way of a miscellaneous committee report. At the last meeting, I talked about the appointment of an advisory subcommittee on the state budget. However, it occurs that the council has decided to go in a different direction as to how the state should be approached, and so the advisory subcommittee will not go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, is there anything further? Did you want to make an announcement about? We can do that at the regular meeting.
Anytime you want.
Why don't you go now? Anything we can do now, we don't have to do at the regular meeting.
Oh, okay. Are you talking about law director?
Yes.
Sure. I'm appointing myself as the law director.
Okay.
I looked for the best person, and I looked in the mirror, and no, it's like when Dick Cheney chose vice president for George Bush and came up with himself. Anyway, no, I'm very pleased to announce that Majid Makhlouf is my nominee to serve as your law director. He is a person, I know a few of you have had the pleasure to sit down with him. He is a person of not just a compelling personal story and personal background, and not just somebody that is a dedicated member of this community. I think he's one of Mr. Greenspan's constituents. But he has an extraordinary breadth of experience in this area. And we went through a difficult process with the confirmation process that we had with Mr. Clifford, and I tried to take that into consideration with my choice here. And he's somebody that I think not only does he meet the requirements of the charter and the spirit of the charter, but he exceeds them by as much as anybody that I can think of in the Cleveland area. He has for the past approximately 10 years continuously he has represented a very wide variety of local political subdivisions, everything from school districts to individual municipalities, to counties themselves. He represented Stark County in matters. It actually goes beyond the experience of somebody that would be a law director for just one individual city. He's looking forward, I know, to your questions and the confirmation proceedings that you have, and he also welcomes any scrutiny of his current clients, which represent municipalities all across Cuyahoga County and the districts that all of you represent. He is also, and I would encourage you to question him on these matters, he's been extremely thoughtful about what the role is of the first law director and how we have to set up this structure. He has hit the ground running already in terms of meeting with staff, with council members obviously, but also with staff. And I think he's going to serve this. He's going to serve this government very well. He has been consistently recognized by his peers as a rising star in the legal community. You would be hard pressed to find somebody in the municipal law field as well regarded as Mr. McCloof is. So I know that he's. I think I officially submitted today his nomination to you in writing, and we'll look forward to your hearings and on him serving both myself and council. And I think he has a real appreciation for the special role that he'll have in representing council as well. And we'll look forward to that his confirmation process.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. We do have the confirmation hearing for Mr. Bender this coming Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. And we actually have a very light agenda for the 29th. And so rather than, and we plan to have a very short work session. So it would be my suggestion, if it's agreeable to members of council, that we could do the law director at 3 o'clock on the 29th. And then we could have that, and assuming that he go through the confirmation process, then we could have it on the agenda for the following week for passage, and it would free up a Thursday morning when some of you have other things to do, other committee meetings or other places to go. Like, if that's agreeable, would that be okay with everybody? Yeah. Okay. And we check to see there's no other committee meetings at that time. And then we can go into a work session. We'll probably be out of here by 5 or something. Okay. We'll have 2 hours for the confirmation and have a brief work session at 5. I think
Starting at 5.
At 5, I think there's a couple of items would be on the agenda. All right. Mr. Schreiner?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Fitzgerald, do you anticipate that there'll be much in the way of conflicts of interest with any of his clients? You just alluding to whereby we need representation and probably have to go to outside. When you looked at his record, I mean, it looks like a very extensive record and a great compliment to your selection. But I just was more concerned about whether there's going to be existing conflicts that you see that are going to percolate up.
I don't. He and I touched on that. I know he was going through a due diligence process to try to see if there's any pending litigation between any of his clients in the county. And most of his clients have been municipalities. I don't think it's usually a true conflict, but it's a good question. We'll have to analyze it. I think it's probably something where if there's a specific matter that there'll be times when a recusal on his part is appropriate, but we'll have to measure that. It's a good point.
If perhaps he'd be prepared maybe when on the 29th, just to maybe answer, obviously not without specificity, but from that general concept.
I will pass it on to him, and he'll be prepared.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr.
on the 29th, I had originally scheduled a Rules Ethics Committee meeting at 1 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and reschedule that meeting to a later date.
Okay, so then we just start at 3 o'clock.
Right, my committee will not meet on the 29th.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Mr. Fitzgerald, did you have dinner ready for us?
You folks must miss me. I noticed you asking me a lot today. People must miss me. It's been a while, I guess. No, I don't have. I have a little bit of Diet Snapple left. If anybody would like that, that's about it. I'm on a diet, by the way. I just started my diet, so don't ask me for food and don't bring it up. I'm very testy.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to,
Madam President,
yes.
I just wondered, as Mr. Greenspan is not going to have his meeting, the reason we were going to have the confirmation hearing at 3 o'clock was because of that meeting. Did you want to consider an earlier or different time, or?
We had said 3, but would you rather do 4?
We're going to do 3 to 5 for confirmation hearing, and then 5 for the work session.
Okay.
But if you wanted to set that earlier
Right.
or not, but.
All right, let's
just
leave it
bringing
at 3
up.
then. Okay.
Leave it like that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, is there then a motion to adjourn the work session? So moved. Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All right, we'll be back at 6 o'clock.